Tim Walz. Tim Walz pulled up to Fox. First time that I actually ever seen somebody on the Democratic side pull up in op territory. I couldn't believe it. When people sent it to me, I said, no way, no how did Tim Walz pull up to Fox News. But he did. And let me give him a round of applause. We will never see Kamala Harris do it. So she sent her lapdog, Tim Walz, to do it. So I have not reviewed the entire interview. I just seen portions of it. But this was Tim Walz's performance on Fox News.
Joining us now, Democratic Vice Presidential nominee, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Governor, great to have you with us on Fox News Sunday.
Great to be with you, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I want to pick up where Alexis left off there in the Middle East, because you were asked in the debate the other night a question about whether or not you would support a preemptive strike by Israel.
She got straight to it, didn't she? She ain't waste no time.
On Iran. You didn't really get to an answer on that. So this administration continues to call for Israel to moderate its response after being attacked by Iran. Do you now think that Israel has a right to either strike oil facilities, nuclear facilities? What's your position on that?
Well, look, let's remember how this started, and we're approaching tomorrow a tragic anniversary. Hamas terrorists murdered over 1,200 innocent Israelis, 46 Americans, took hostages. We have been clear. Israel has the right to defend itself. We've always stood in that position. We need the hostages returned, and we need to bring an end to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But again, the point is it's Iran is at the heart of this, and their proxies that bring disruption throughout the region. That's why being in the Situation Room as Vice President was working with Israelis to repel the attack we saw this week. They tried it back in April, the same thing. And that's the point of being and boxing Iran in. President Trump tore up the nuclear deal that moved Iran closer to a nuclear weapon. He also allowed Iran to shoot down an American aircraft in international airspace with a tweet. And when Iranian missiles fell on U.S. troops, he called it a headache when it was traumatic brain injury. Just to be clear, we have always said we reserve the right to protect American troops, our allies in the region, and that there is consequences for Iran. So what you're seeing right now is the ability to work with our allies, the ability to make sure Iran does not further, and every administration has dealt with them for 45 years. Now it's to make sure, and there has never been a question, Israel has the right to defend itself, and we stand with them to do that.
Okay, so listen, I like Tim Walz. All right, I don't, but that's irrelevant. So I don't necessarily like Tim Walz and what he stands for, but I like the fact that he is pulling up in op territory, and I also like the fact that it seems like he's smarter than he really is. But here's my problem with Tim Walz, and it's the same thing with Kamala Harris, and I also believe that Tim Walz has stolen a lot of Kamala Harris's ways. And what that is the art of word salad is strong with this one. The art of word salad is very, very strong with this one. When we listen to these people, you have to understand that if they talk long enough, they'll divert you away from what you originally asked them. The question was, do you support Israel taking preemptive strikes against, not is Israel or do Israel reserve the right to be able to defend themselves against attacks? That's not the question. The question was, do you support the idea that Israel can do preemptive strikes against their enemies? Why are we funding this if it's not about defense, but it's more about being on the offensive? Now, right or wrong, you did not answer the question, and that's what I'm always trying to understand. Why are you hitting us with all of this word salad and wasting our time instead of answering the question directly and then adding the additional context? But it's a classic Kamala Harris politician move, and that's exactly what you just seen with Tim Walz.
We need to bring this to a conclusion.
Does that include a strike on Iran's nuclear or oil facilities?
Specific operations will be dealt with at the time, but being
word salad are strong with these ones. Word salad is strong with these ones. They do not answer questions ever, ever. He is no J.D. Vance. Again, we're giving him credit for showing up, but he is not a J.D. Vance. He does not answer the questions.
Very clear on this. Iran, there was consequences for what they do. That's what's happening right now. Israel's right to defend itself is not in question.
Okay, you said in a radio interview that anti-Israel protesters were speaking out, quote, for all the right reasons. You know that some of them are carrying Hamas flags. Some of them are calling for the extermination of the Jewish state. Do you want to clarify your praise for that?
Well, I'm certainly not talking about them. I'm talking about the people who understand that we have to end the humanitarian crisis, but they understand we need to return the hostages, bring peace to the region. Look, I will always defend people's rights to First Amendment, but that's not the folks I'm talking about. Those folks are not speaking for the entire group. So I think it's very clear on this. Israel's right, as we've stood with them. Anti-Semitism has no place in this country, and Vice President Harris has been clear about that. I've been clear about it. But the ability to bring a peaceful solution and understand Israel's right to defend itself, the return of the hostages, and Gazans' right to live in peace too is something that we're trying to get to. And that's going to take the leadership that we've seen out of Vice President Harris, being able to hold this coalition together. And again, when Iran launched their missiles this week, she's in the Situation Room. That's different. The people who are in the Situation Room with Donald Trump, like John Kelly as chief of staff, said he shouldn't be there. He's a damaged human being. His own defense secretary said he does not understand the situation, is incapable of dealing with it.
Okay.
So it's about character.
Let's focus on what your position is and the vice president's position as well. I want to talk about abortion too, because this came up at the debate. It's been a winning argument for Democrats on many ballots, but I want to clarify what the law is there in Minnesota. Abortion Finder, a website that helps women find access, says abortion is legal throughout pregnancy in Minnesota. There is no ban or limit on abortion in Minnesota based on how far along in a pregnancy you are. You signed the bill that makes it legal through all 9 months. Is that a position you think Democrats should advocate for nationally?
Look, the vice president and I have been clear. The restoration of Roe versus Wade is what we're asking for.
But that
this is
law
a
goes
woman's
far beyond
right
Roe v. Wade
to make her own choice. The law is very clear. It does not change that. That was been debunked on every occasion.
But wait, let's agree. What you signed is there's not a single limit through 9 months of pregnancy. Roe had a trimester framework that did have limits through the pregnancy. The Minnesota law does not have that.
This puts the decision with the woman and her health care providers.
Anybody that rolls with this, honest to God, you don't have to be a scholar to hear exactly what's going on here. And no matter how much they try to word salad and weasel their way out of it, honestly, I believe that this is a demonic party. I don't believe that everybody inside of the party is demonic. I believe that the foundation of the people that is running this party today and in yesteryear is all based off of values and principles that have nothing to do with representing what we stand for as a country and as a people. And if they want to talk about character, how can you support, no matter how you feel, how can you support that it makes sense to create or push the parameters even outside of what the framework was for Roe v. Wade and say that it is okay at any point, and we're going to leave it up to the woman and her doctor, and don't even have a baseline? So usually what happens in a moral society, or a society that is thinking about things about how they can at least have the most basic of human decency to a situation, is that you usually have a very, very clear baseline. All right, listen, makes sense at this point, not at that point. And again, this isn't even a conservative versus a liberal viewpoint, in my opinion. It's almost like protecting the borders. Like, we're supposed to protect our borders regardless of what side of the fence we on. It doesn't matter if you're a liberal or a conservative, you're a Republican or a Democrat. At the very least, even if you support, okay, so let's say you support abortion or a woman's right to be able to abort her child. Let's say you're making that argument. Okay, so what is the parameters? Do you stop that once it reaches 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, so you can have an abortion up to the 9th month in which the baby could possibly still survive? That's crazy. That's crazy. This is not when you 1 month pregnant, 2 months. This ain't even that. This ain't the morning after pill. None of that. This is The framework is that, come on, man, at the very least, the framework is that you can possibly remove the child, and we want to frame it as reproductive rights or a woman's ability to be able to decide what she want to do with her body. And this isn't a special circumstance, rape, incest. Oh my God, she may die during a pregnancy or something like that. This is, listen, there is no framework, and whatever y'all come to the conclusion is, y'all can go ahead and knock that out. That's crazy. That's crazy. As a person that has never been in a position, nor have I ever really cared, because, I've always assumed that we had a basic level of human decency to determine whether or not you should or shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? Like there has to be some kind of framework, no matter what side of the aisle you on. That's crazy. That's nonsense, y'all. Come on, man. Come on, bro. And listen, I know you just gonna support your candidate because you're gonna support your candidate no matter what. But when you remove the candidates and you just look at the issues at surface value or at face value, that's insane, bro.
The situation we have is when you don't have the ability of healthcare providers to provide that, that's where you end up with a situation like Amanda Zaworski in Texas, where they are afraid to do what's necessary. This doesn't change anything. It puts the decision back on to the woman, to the physicians, and we know that this is simply something to be brought up to be very clear. Donald Trump's asking for a nationwide abortion ban.
Wait,
and again, we don't see this as a winning campaign.
He has said repeatedly that he will not sign a national abortion ban. Are you calling that just, it's a flat out lie?
Yes, of course. And Senator Vance has in the past said so too. Now look, they may see this as an election issue. We see it as a right of women to make their own bodily decisions. And that's what the states like my state have the ability to put that in. States like Georgia force women to cross the border, and then we have a death of Amber Thurman. So let's be very clear. Trying to cut hairs on an issue on this is not where the American public's at. They want the restoration of Roe versus Wade. Vice President Harris said she would sign it. That's what we'll do when we're elected.
But to be clear, the Minnesota law is far
women.
beyond Roe v. Wade. And about the Amber Thurman case in Georgia, her family has, and it's tragic, she is a young mother who left behind a young son. But what her family has said is it was a complication from an abortion pill that she received, and she didn't get proper care when she went to a Georgia hospital, which had multiple opportunities to intervene there.
Eric D., I agree with you. I think that this is an issue that Democrats largely have been able to capitalize off of. But I'm not talking about winning or losing in this situation. I'm talking about basic human decency. I'm talking about morals and characters. I'm not even talking about Trump versus Kamala Harris, Republican versus Democrat. I'm asking the question of, when do we remove the politics from it and start looking at humans as humans? At what point do we then leverage science to make an informed decision and say, you know what? This is wrong and this is right. I'm not looking at this as a political issue. I know where Trump stands. I know where Kamala Harris stands. Kamala Harris wants Roe v. Wade back in office. Trump says that he does not want this on a federal level. The individual states should be the ones to determine what happens in their state. Ohio, which has largely been a conservative stronghold, has said that they want liberal policies when it comes to abortion. I'm not talking about the politics of it. I'm talking about the humanity. Why would somebody advocate for this? Why would somebody, at the very least, even if you are the most liberal person in the world, not put a parameter? Because I thought that we don't want to see, especially in the 9th month, 8th month, 9th month, a baby being deleted. That's crazy to me, bro.
Her own attorney, the family's attorney, says it wasn't the Georgia law, it was the hospitals, what he claims is malpractice, not treating her when she clearly showed up in distress and still had the byproducts of her pregnancy because of that rare complication from the abortion pill. So just to be clear on the Georgia law and how her family and her attorney sees it.
I think they also indicated that had she not go to North Carolina after the debate the other night, that she would have been in a better position. So look, these are the situations you're going to get into when you take this decision and put it in the hands of politicians like Donald Trump rather than women and their doctors. We trust women, we trust doctors, and we know the outcomes of that are better.
Okay,
I
let's
don't.
clarify more changes that you signed in Minnesota as well. Several things were repealed with respect to reporting infants who may have survived an abortion attempt. Language that used to be part of the statute was taken out. We'll put this on the screen so people can see. It used to require medical personnel to, quote, preserve the life and health of the born alive infant. That language has been repealed. It's no longer part of the law. Also struck from the law was language about reporting infants that are born alive, what treatment they receive, and whether they live or die. Why was it important to you to get that protection out of the law?
Minnesota law aligns with every other case of what physicians are required by their ethical responsibilities. And so it changed nothing other than aligning with all care that physicians provide in any circumstance for any medical case. And so it's alignment, as it's always been. It's the cases we've seen in Minnesota, the outcomes we get in our healthcare results are the best in the nation. And all it did was align with existing law.
But you do acknowledge it takes out the language about preserving the life of an infant who was born alive.
Every doctor has an ethical responsibility to provide what they can in each situation.
Honestly, bro, I mean, you just can't tell me that these people are not demonic. Real talk. It just doesn't make sense the way that they talk and the way that they speak and what they advocating for. And they just making it okay. Thank y'all for the super chats. I'm going to read the super chat shortly. They're making it okay for them to just do what they want when they want, and that's not okay. It's not okay for them to just say, well, the law, or you know what, they have an ethical responsibility to figure it out for themselves. No, bro, no.
That is the way the law is written now. It's the same for any person who shows up.
Removing
and again,
language.
This is a distraction from the real issue here is women being forced into miscarriages, women being forced to go back home, get sepsis, potentially die, like we saw in cases in Texas. And maternal mortality rates in Texas have skyrocketed off the charts because of this. This is bad policy. Vice President and I have been very clear on this. We will restore the rights of Roe versus Wade. We will make sure women have their health care decisions. We will not put people's lives at risk because of the geography of where they live. And it will go back to the way it was before Donald Trump gleefully said, we've got the best of both worlds here. Things are wonderful. The states are handling it. It's a beautiful thing. It's not a beautiful thing to see women dying. It's not.
Question in the chat, y'all. Question in the chat. Do you guys think that Roe v. Wade should be reinstalled to where at a federal level, they're basically dictating what you can and can't do with your body? Or do you think that the individual states, it should be in the hands of the voters at the individual states for whether or not you should be able to delete a baby or not? Just question in the chat. Y'all let me know.
A beautiful thing to put doctors at risk of being imprisoned.
It is not. It is not to see any single woman suffer. And by the way, there's not a single state, no matter how pro-life or restrictive their laws are, that do not allow a doctor to intercede. That's true in Georgia and Texas as well. I want to turn to the economy. Our latest polling shows that 66% of Americans we talked to said that buying groceries is a, quote, major problem for them. And when we ask people about how they feel about the policies of this administration versus the previous, double the amount
all of y'all are saying the states. Everybody is saying number two. Everybody is saying the states level. I'm going to make a poll in the chat.
Say that Biden-Harris policies have hurt them rather than help them and their families economically. That's in stark contrast to how they feel when asked about the Trump administration. So what would a Harris-Walz administration do different than a Biden-Harris administration when it comes to convincing people that the economy is going to get better for them because their perception is that it's not?
Well, we saw a blockbuster jobs report this week. We saw interest rates come down, and we've also seen that Vice President Harris laying out a middle-class agenda. Look, I was in Ohio yesterday, in Cleveland, in Cincinnati, and talking about this. Folks in Ohio know that Donald Trump's policies led to 180,000 manufacturing jobs leaving. They understand when he left office, we had more people unemployed percentage-wise than the Great Depression. What Vice President Harris is talking about is making it more affordable to buy housing. And we've seen it in Minneapolis. When you have more housing stock, we've seen rates go down. We've seen more houses available. Also, the idea of price gouging. 37 states, Republican and Democratic states, have this. Corn is about $4.10 or so a bushel. That's where it's been for many years, up and down. But prices at the grocery stores have skyrocketed, corporate profits have skyrocketed, and people are paying more. So we talk about that. And then I think the fundamental difference here is Donald Trump kept his promise. He cut taxes for the wealthiest. She's talking about making sure things like a child tax credit, $6,000 child tax credit, put more money in people's pocket, making sure that we're able to buy those things, whether it's a crib or it's baby formula, get started. And she's simply asking that we can pay for it by asking those at the top to pay their fair share.
I put the poll in the chat of what the people want. Y'all let me know what y'all want. Y'all vote, and then I'm going to review the poll shortly.
This is a fundamental difference in approaches to it, and we're seeing it working. We're seeing economists talk about Donald Trump's proposal to add a 20% sales tax will cost $4,000.
Okay.
That's everybody. That's not me saying it.
And just to note, that is a tariff, which, by the way, this administration not only kept most of the Trump tariffs, but they added their own as well. So that's got to be part of the conversation. I want to talk a little bit about your record as governor, because it elucidates for people how you may serve as whether you end up being the president. You'll be one heartbeat away. Should your ticket be successful. Wall Street Journal says this after you were chosen to join the ticket. As the Democratic governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz signed into law initiatives allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's licenses, qualify for free tuition at state universities, and enroll in the state's free health care program for low-income residents. Are those not magnets to draw people here, many times on dangerous journeys for themselves? And why should your taxpayers in Minnesota or across the states pay for those programs?
Well, that's not the vice president's position, but I will say this. Minnesota ranks as a top 5 business state. We rank as a top 3 state for children living, and we're the top state for healthcare access. I would also add this. We also have some of the safest roads. Look, the vice president has made it clear that she has policies that make a difference. Her border policies are the most strongest, the fair.
Wait. So he's not going to answer that question? He's not going to answer that question? So you're not going to answer the question about basically using taxpayer dollars in order to basically pay for and allow for illegal migrants to apply for driver's license, leverage the state and leverage the county and leverage their cities in order to get free services that are basically reserved for taxpayers, and then basically push them into the economy in order to make sure that, I guess, Minnesota still has a great population. I don't know what the goal is. So he's just going to completely ignore the question.
We've seen. It's the
now,
bill
Governor,
that was,
you know a lot of
crafted.
people, including your own party, would not join that statement. There are millions of people who have come here over the last few years that, they see this as an open policies.
Border. Well, simply, we have a policy. Donald Trump sees it as a political. Look.
See, whenever you get cornered, you start talking about Donald Trump. Answer the question, bro.
James Langford in Oklahoma, the Border Patrol agents, the Wall Street Journal, the Chamber of Commerce, all said pass this legislation. You have to have Congress to authorize 1,500 new border agents. You have to have Congress to authorize DOJ to speed adjudications on these asylum claims. Those are things that would actually work. Donald Trump told us for 4 years he would deal with.
Again, whenever you can't answer the question and you're trying to divert the attention, start talking about Trump.
He didn't build his wall, 2%. Mexico didn't pay for it. This is a real bill that has bipartisan support. It has the experts on board, and it starts to tackle these issues. And we don't have to resort to demonizing people. We don't have to resort to making up or crafting stories, as Senator Vance said he did. Those things were not happening in Springfield, but it doesn't mean that we can't pass a piece of legislation to strengthen our border. That's what.
Did you do it, or did you not allow for this to happen in your state, Tim?
Kamala Harris is talking about.
Well,
She's talking
Governor,
about solving the problem.
That piece of legislation does include the wall that you guys have been so, you've disparaged that. I mean, the vice president has as well. So I don't know if she really intends to move forward with that. But it was negotiated by 3 or 4 senators, and many Republicans came out against it long before President Trump indicated he didn't like it either. Listen, before we go, because I wish that we had a full hour, I want to give you a chance, because you called yourself a knucklehead this week, to talk about some of your misstatements. Yes. You've modified your story or explained that you misspoke about things involving your military rank, about...
They only give them like 10 minutes, and for 10, 15 minutes, so they're going to have to hurry up and get as many questions in as they can. If it was me personally and I was interviewing Kamala Harris, I would just hammer home everything with regard to immigration. I wouldn't ask a bunch of questions. If it's me and I ever get a chance to interview them, only thing I'm talking about is immigration. Only thing I'm talking about is illegal migrants into this country. That's it. I'm hammering it. I'm going to ask the same question over and over and over and over and over again until I get an answer. I'm going to be just like, what's my man's name? Amazing. Jesse Lee Peterson. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What is a woman? What is a woman? Huh. So do you think that you're a Christian? Are you a Christian? I know that's what you said, but I just want to know, are you a Christian? Amazing. Why are you running? Why are you running? I thought we were having a good conversation. Why are you running? Ah, amazing. Jesse Lee Peterson, he don't move off of what he gonna say. He gonna say stick to the script. But I meant to ask you, are you a man or a woman? Well, how you gonna be a preacher if you're a woman, but you're born biologically a man? Well, God said that you shouldn't do that. Why you don't want to talk? You don't want to talk no more? You don't want to talk no more? Amazing. Berta. Let Tim answer the rest of this question.
Carrying a weapon in war, your 1995 DUI arrest, using IVF to have your beautiful children, Gus and Hope, being in Hong Kong and China in the summer of 1989 during the Tiananmen events. A lot of people would say they couldn't get away with saying, I'm just too passionate, my grammar's not right, I'm a knucklehead. What do you say to the American people who think, I don't know that I can trust this guy with all those modifications to be the potential commander-in-chief of this country?
Yeah, well, I think they heard me. They heard me the other night speaking passionately about gun violence and misspeaking. And I got to be honest with you, Shannon, I don't think people care whether I used IUI or IVF when we talk about this. What they understand is Donald Trump would resist those things. Look, I speak passionately. I had an entire career, decades before I was in public office. They know, and I'm very proud of my 24 years in service and my record. I have never disparaged someone else in this, but I know that's not what Donald Trump does. They disparage everyone, the personal attacks. I will own up when I misspeak. I will own up when I make a mistake. Let's be very.
What about when you lie? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, give Tim Walz a round of applause, though. We got to give him some credit. We got to give him some credit because they've been hiding Tampon Tim. But Tim, at the very least, we have to at least acknowledge the fact that he pulled up to op territory. Finally, one of them did. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump been doing it the entire campaign season. But we got to acknowledge that Tim at least pulled up to op territory, even if he says some crazy stuff.